Should you go on a big or a small ship? Royal Caribbean's fleet of 25 ships means there's all sorts of sizes you can choose from, and each one has its own set of advantages and drawbacks. So what are the differences between the big and small Royal Caribbean cruise ships? I've got the details up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. Certainly, there are plenty of differences between the Royal Caribbean cruise ships. The major differences between a big and a small ship are really important to understand, so that way you can find the best ship for you. Oftentimes, new cruisers want to know which Royal Caribbean cruise ship is the worst or which ships to avoid, and the answer is all the ships are good. But the real question is, what do you want in a ship? So let's walk through the important considerations when comparing big Royal Caribbean cruise ships to the smaller ones. Starting off with the most important one, number one, small is still big. Yeah, when we talk about big or small cruise ships in the Royal Caribbean fleet, they're all big ships in the grand scheme of things. Royal Caribbean has a reputation among the mainstream cruise lines for offering innovative and large ships, and many of the smaller ships in the fleet would still be pretty darn large if they suddenly became part of another cruise line. The smallest Royal Caribbean cruise ships can still accommodate over 2,000 passengers. So remember that just because you sail on a smaller Royal Caribbean cruise ship doesn't mean you'll be on a yacht or an expedition vessel. If you truly want small ships, and I mean small in the academic sense of the word, you'd have to consider one of Royal Caribbean's sister brands like Celebrity or Silver Sea. Number two difference between a big ship and a small ship is public space. The bigger the ship, the more public space the ship can provide passengers. Public space, by the way, are areas of the ship where you can congregate and enjoy, such as pool decks or a promenade deck. Larger ships have wide open spaces, including shopping districts, open-air venues, and even a park. That isn't to say that a smaller ship has no public space at all. Because large ships have more deck space, Royal Caribbean can offer more areas for passenger. Another big difference is cost. It's always difficult to make generalizations about the price of a cruise, but overall, larger ships tend to cost more than smaller ships. Because bigger ships tend to be newer than smaller ships, bigger ships come with a higher price tag on average. Essentially, you're paying a premium to sail on the latest and greatest. So bargain hunters will find the best deals on smaller or even older cruise ships. That isn't to say there aren't deals to be had on even the newest ships in the fleet. Just that if you were to compare prices over a wide swath of possible sailings, you're going to find a price advantage for the smaller ships. Another key difference between a big ship and a small ship that a lot of people pick up on are the dining choices. If variety of places you can eat, especially restaurants, matters to you, then bigger ships are what you want. Because big ships have more space to include more offerings, you're almost always going to find more restaurants on bigger ships than smaller ships. There is generally the same basic complimentary venues on any Royal Caribbean cruise ship, such as the main dining room, buffet, and a grab-and-go spot. So you'll never go hungry or be at a loss of where to eat. Kind of like a big city will have more restaurants than a small city, the same is basically true for big or small ships. Bigger ships will have more complimentary dining venues as well as more specialty restaurants. So for anyone that prefers specialty restaurants, a big ship will always offer more variety. The next key difference is the ports you can visit. Not every cruise port in the world can accommodate big ships, so if you want to visit more exotic locations, you're going to need to sail on a smaller ship. In the Caribbean, there's very little difference in port choices since most Caribbean ports can accommodate even the largest ships in the world. But as you look to sail elsewhere in the world, you're going to find other ports to call that cannot handle a big ship. This is especially true of any port that does not have a pier and requires the ship to tender. In fact, the Oasis-class ships are incapable of tendering, so that precludes them from being able to visit places like Belize or Grand Cayman. If you're in the market for a larger cabin on your cruise, well then, there's a key difference when it comes to cruise ships. Some families prefer to stay in one room, and cabins that can accommodate bigger groups tend to be found with more regularity on bigger ships. Suites tend to be more predominant choice for larger rooms that can accommodate more than 4 people. While small ships have suites, big ships have many more suite options. If you're someone that really wants to see views of the ocean all the time, well, there is a difference between a big and a small ship. It may not seem like a big deal, but being able to see the ocean while you're inside a cruise ship can be important to some people. Bigger ships tend to be more inward-facing, whereas small ships feature many more windows and ocean viewing opportunities. Part of the reason for this difference is based in the evolution of cruise ships over the last few decades, where cruise ships started becoming destinations in and of themselves. Not everyone minds missing out on the scenery going by, but on sailings where the landscape around you matters, like Alaska or Northern Europe, Being able to see more outside from bars, lounges, and other public spaces becomes much more important. What if you're a little sensitive to getting seasick? Does motion in the ocean factor into which ship and the difference to pick from? And the answer is it can. Another generalization that may not be true for everybody is bigger ships are going to offer passengers potentially, maybe, a smoother ride than small ships. I want to caution everybody that this recommendation isn't an absolute, and just because you're on an Oasis class ship doesn't mean you can't feel motion in the ocean. But modern cruise ships are equipped with stabilizers, but simple physics tells us that a larger ship is going to need more ocean current to be rocked than a smaller ship. That isn't to say that if you're on a small ship, you feel like a boat in a bathtub with an angry toddler nearby, but many repeat cruisers will swear by bigger ships offering a more stable ride. Again, in general, don't complain later if that happens to you on a bigger ship. It's just a generalization. Next up are onboard activities, and this is a really important factor. In addition to the public space we talked about earlier in this video, big ships tend to have more room to offer the fun activities you probably read and heard about on a cruise. You'll absolutely find more water slides, pools, simulators, and just generally things to do on a big ship compared to a smaller ship. Royal Caribbean's smallest cruise ships lack water slides at all, and the Radiance class has a single kiddie water slide that's really only suitable for very young children. Whether or not these whiz-bang activities matter to you is an entirely different question, but families tend to gravitate toward ships that have more to do, and bigger ships have plenty of them. Speaking of things to do, entertainment is another consideration when it comes to a big ship or a smaller ship. Whether you love Broadway musicals or production shows, the big ships have them. Did you know that Royal Caribbean has full-length Broadway musicals that you can see on board for additionally no cost? It's true, but it's only on their large ships. Small ships have production shows too, but they're not nearly as ornate as the ones on the bigger ships. And the shows on small ships almost certainly have not been updated in many years. Once again, that isn't inherently a bad thing, but some people feel that this matters, and I wanted to mention it here. If the casino matters to you, well then there is a difference as well between big and small ships, because for gamblers, all the ships in Royal Caribbean's fleet have a casino, but the big ships have a much larger casino space. More space than casino means more games, including slot machines and tables. This becomes more important in the evenings when lots of passengers head down to the casino to gamble and tables fill up quickly for the lowest stake games. Even the smallest Royal Caribbean cruise ships offer the same kind of games. So you're not compromising when it comes to picking a ship and losing on your favorite game. It's just simply there's going to be more options available to you on a bigger ship. Now, if you're looking for intimacy on your cruise ship, no, not that kind of intimacy. Small ships make it easier to get around the ship and meet crew members and other guests, which means you get to know everyone else on board just a little bit easier and better. The people sailing with you are a major component of the vacation, and being able to meet up with friends and family on board or find your favorite waiter is much easier on a smaller ship. Not only that, getting from point A to point B is easier on a small ship and it requires less walking. Again, not the end of the world, but something to consider as well. So there you have it, 12 differences between Royal Caribbean's big and small ships. Which should you choose? Ultimately, it's going to be a personal choice of which of these factors really matters to you. Whether or not there's an extra craps table, or the distance between your cabin and the elevator bank is a little bit longer, or the ports you visit matters, is going to come up to you and your choices. There isn't a right or wrong choice, but I think it's super important to understand what those differences are and what the trade-offs are between a big and a small ship. Let me know in the comments below if you choose between a big or a small ship. What considerations do you look for, and what's most important to you? Can't wait to read those down there below. While you're below our video, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. It really helps if you can hit that like button and make a comment down below. It's just something that the YouTube gods determine is really important, so I would appreciate that. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.